Hello and welcome to Blades of Thunder. Today I have the 550 in front of me that we did the unboxing a few weeks ago on. Okay, and I haven't really done anything to it apart from check it over at the moment. Everything seems to be Loctited in, so I haven't really taken anything out because I didn't want to disturb the Loctite. Okay, so what we have done is I fitted the motor, and we had to make some modifications to get this motor in because this is a slightly more powerful motor than what the airframe is designed for, and it's a bit chunkier, so we just needed to cut the frame out a bit to accommodate the motor, and we had to modify the motor mount a bit because the M4 bolts are wider apart than the M3 bolts on the 1220 motor that this is designed for. Okay, I've fitted a couple of servos and we'll talk about that a bit more in detail, and we've dry fitted the gears, the shaft and the flybarred head. Now we don't need the flybarred head because we are going to be fitting this lovely 3-blade scale head. Okay, because this set of mechanics is going to be, once we've test flown it as a 550, is destined for this helicopter behind me, so it's going to have a nice scale 3-blade head from the start. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we need to take the head off, the shaft out and the gear out so that we can make fitting the servo a bit easier. So it's only dry fitted, so it's not bolted in, so we lift the head off. We're not going to be using the flybarred head at all, however we're not going to throw it away because they're handy things to keep hold of, because they're full of spare parts, ball links, balls and stuff that you might need later on if something breaks. So keep hold of that, just pop it to one side and keep it out of the way. We will be keeping the shaft, we'll be reusing that, and then we can just take the gear out, and now we're ready to fit the last cyclic servo. Okay, our 550 here takes standard size servos, and we've chosen these Savox 1256 tungsten geared servos. They're very powerful servos, so they're great for multi-blade heads. This has a stall torque, I believe, of around 20 kilos, which is quite a lot. They're one of the most powerfulest servos out there, and because they're tungsten geared, they're not going to wear out anytime soon either. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is just pop it out the box, and in the box obviously you've got the servo, load of packaging, and on the back of the packaging is all your technical data should you need it. For those of you who like to decorate your models, there's some stickers, you won't need those, and obviously the servo arms and the grommets and stuff to fit it. Keep hold of the box because that is a lovely little box for putting your bits and pieces in if you don't want to lose them. Okay, so here we have this is just a pretty basic battery tester and servo checker, and the first thing we need to do is find the center on the servo. So if you look at this servo here, we need to find the 90-degree mark on the servo, which will be the neutral point or 0 degrees pitch when we've set up the helicopter. So inside the bag of servo arms you get the screw to secure it with a locking collar, a great big disc, a star, a little disc and a cross. Okay, and it's the cross that we're going to use. So we'll just get rid of these bits because they'll only be in the way. so if we connect this up to our servo checker and fit a battery. Okay, the first thing we need to do is, on a servo checker, you can play with the servo, take it to one extreme to the other. You can let it do it automatically, or you can find the 1500 microseconds, which is the center point of the servo. Okay, and what you do now, you've got that set, is you put your servo arm on, and if you move it around, one of the arms will eventually be dead center, like that. Okay, so it's dead center that way and dead center that way, and then you can just push it on and screw it down with your servo. And always good practice, even though it's got a locking collar on, is to use a little bit of thread lock, a blue thread lock in this case, because we may at some point want to get it on and off. And remember, a little goes a long way, so don't overdo it. Pop it in and screw it on. And you keep screwing it until it's all the way down. Remember, don't over tighten it, because you may want to get it off at some point. Okay, so while we've got the power on and stuff, it's going to sit there, which means we're going to need to fit the ball link on the inside of the arm. So we'll just turn that over like that, and the front one we use a longer ball link, and we just screw that onto the outside of the arm, and just keep screwing till it goes all the way through. Okay, so that's in there quite secure. It's probably never going to come out. However, my preference is to put a little lock nut on the back. So put a little bit of thread lock on the stud that's sticking out, and then this is just an M2 screw thread. So we fit an M2 bolt, get it a couple of threads on, using a 4mm spanner, tighten it up and hold it with your hex. It just gives you a little bit of extra security. Remember, this is flight critical, so if you lose that, you're going to crash basically, so we don't want to lose it. Just a little bit of extra security to hold that on. Okay, so we're almost ready to fit the servo now, and so we've got the servo there, we've got the rubber grommet and the insert to fit. Okay, this is the screw for fitting the servos that come in the kit. We're not going to use that. In favour, we're going to use these four that came with the Savox servo itself. They're just miles better and they're a lot stronger. So we'll get rid of that, we don't need that. You'll also, in the kit, you get 4 of these carbon spacers per servo, plus 2 plastic backers that the screws will screw into. So they're self-tapping screws, so you need to be careful you don't over tighten them. Okay, just tighten them enough to hold the servo in there, because if you strip it inside there, you've wrecked it and you don't get any spares. Okay, so you look at your grommet, it has a flat bit and a round bit, so you just push the round bit in so the flat bit sticks out once it's in, so it's flush with the thing, and then the insert just pops inside, and that stops the rubber bit from popping out, and locks the whole lot together. Okay, and you just need to give it a bit of a squeeze with a pair of pliers. Make sure they're flat pliers, the ones without the teeth, otherwise you'll damage the rubber. Okay, so the servo's now ready to fit, and just thread the wire through so it comes out the top and push the servo in. Okay, so take one of the carbon spacers and you'll notice it's got a groove, and if you look on the servo, on the top of the servo there is a strengthening mark, a strengthening point on there. Okay, so that groove goes inwards over the strengthener. Pop 2 screws through and then just pop them. I just always start with the bottom because it's the harder one to do. You need to hold on to the 2 screws on the servo, find the screws inside, hold that together, and then pop on the plastic bit, and then with a screwdriver you'll feel it bite. Just do a couple of turns just to get it going so it all doesn't fall apart, and then you can repeat the process on the top. So it forms a big giant sandwich. Okay, once you've got it going, just tighten them up. Remember, don't over tighten. So you'll feel it go tight, and then just give it a little tiny nip. Like that. And then do the same on the bottom. If you do any more than a little tiny nip, then you're basically going to be drilling a nice smooth hole. Okay. Right. One thing you need to note with the servo, that as you see we've got a cross on there, as it moves it's hitting that rubber mark. Okay, it's not really going to cause us any problems because when we fit this in the fuselage we're going to pull that rubber mark off, but because we're going to fly it as a pod and boom to start with, we're just going to trim these off. So using a set of side cutters, hold on to it so it doesn't ping off. You can neaten this up if you wanted to with an emery board or something like that. They do sometimes ping off. Okay, so that's not going to interfere with that rubber bit anymore. Okay. Okay, now the servos are in, we're going to we can fit the main gear, the shaft and the head. Okay, so we're going to start with the main gear, and if you look it's not quite lined up, so you just need to turn the auto rotation gear against the one-way bearing until it all lines up like that. Okay, so slide the motor in. Okay, and if you look on the shaft, the top and the bottom holes, or the bottom and the top holes, they're drilled in the same direction, so you can use the top hole as a guide as you bring in the thing, and these bearings are nice and tight on the shaft, so we're not going to get any lateral wobble. And that's gone in first time. Look at that, lovely jubbly. And then you can turn the shaft Right, we need to drop. Okay, sometimes you might need to just lift the collar up a bit to get it in. That's not a problem, just lift it up out of the way, look down and then you find the hole as you turn the shaft. There's the hole. Use a tool just to go through. Okay, the Jesus bolt just goes through the hole at the bottom. Okay. Sometimes you can just you just have to screw it through to get it going, and once it goes through it will slide a bit like that. Okay, so we've pushed that bolt all the way through, so what we'll do now is just pop it on its side like that a little bit, and just using your hex drive just push it back a bit, and then you can put your nut on another hex drive, and you should just be able to get it into, line it up and get it in, and then hold it in with your finger while you tighten up from the other side. And these are nylock bolts, which means that you don't need any thread lock. Okay, they won't come undone. Okay, so you can see now that the main gears assembly can move up and down like that. So that's what this collar's for. So what we need to do is lift that up so it's nice and tight, and then drop the collar down, lift up, and just tighten up one of the grub screws for now. Okay. So we've got no or very little up and down movement there. Okay. So with the other one that's loose, just pop it out completely, keeping it on your hex drive. Take it over to your thread lock, put a little bit of thread lock on, because you don't want this collar coming undone in flight. Screw it in, nice and tight. Take the other one off and it's held in position. A little bit of thread lock on that. Push it back in. Make sure it's nice and tight. There we go. So that's the main gear and the shaft. Okay, we've taken the battery cover off, and we're going to adjust the motor now so it's in position. Okay, and we have a handy tool here, which is just a bit of plain white paper, which is about 0.1 of a millimeter thick, which will give us the ideal gap between the pinion and the motor, because you don't want this to be crushed up against it. It needs to be a little bit of play, but not a lot, and this will help us get the right amount of play. So just slide the bit of paper in. Okay, and once that's in position, we can push the motor back in position and just carefully nip up bolts. Okay. And then when we turn the motor, we should get A nice concertina on the bit of paper, which shows us we've got a nice gap. Okay, and if we look, it's just a little tiny bit of play, not a lot, just a little tiny bit, and you need that because if it's meshed too tightly, this metal pinion will just strip that white plastic gear. Next we're going to fit the swash plate. Now we've already measured the arms and they're correct, and that gap according to the T-Rex 550E manual should be 21mm, which it is, so we haven't had to muck about with them. Okay, so you'll notice you've got a long one at the back and the two short ones at the front. Okay, so the just slides on, so moves up and down quite nicely, and then we just check that the ball links are the right way round. Now you can tell that because one side is wider than the other side, so that's the side that's going to go onto the servo, so we just twist that around. Sometimes you might just need to use those flat jawless pliers again, so we just turn it a bit so that when it goes on it'll go onto the things. We use our ball link pliers, open them up. I just want to twist that around just slightly a bit more. Use our ball link pliers. There we go, and then just clip on, and we do that all the way around. Sometimes it's just easier to lift the servo up to make it so you can get it on it a little bit easier. Just check this one is the right way around. Okay, so that's all the ball links on. Okay, now to stop the swash plate from twisting, we need to fit the anti-rotation bracket. Okay, so this longer arm fits through that slot in the bracket, and then this just clips on the side. Now in the kit you get the canopy nut and that long threaded bit of bar which has a 1.5 thing, so that would normally go in there, and you screw that in all the way. There we go, there it is. You'd screw that in all the way, and then once it's in you screw the canopy nut on the end like that, and it will sit like that, and then your canopy comes onto that. But we're not using a canopy at all. There's no point us buying a canopy for a model that's going to end up in a fuselage, so we're just going to use these self-tapping screws that will hold it in place. Okay, and there's 4 of those in the kit to allow you to do that. So just line it up, and remember you're screwing into plastic, so remember don't just let it get tight and then just give it a little nip. Now it's going into nylon, so it's not going to come undone, so it doesn't need to be gorillaed up. Okay, and there's one at the front, one at the back, and the one at the back is just a little bit lower down there. Okay, so that's the auto anti-rotation bracket on, and that stops the swash plate from twisting. Okay, so next bit to fit is the head. Now with these multi-blade heads you need to be a little bit careful that you get everything going in the right direction. Now initially we're going for a clockwise rotation, so you need to make sure that the arms are leading the blades. You need to make sure that these arms are held out the way, otherwise they get themselves into all sorts of messes. And then we just drop that onto the shaft, and we dropped it, and then we find where the hole is, which is there. Put the top Jesus bolt through, is. Put the nut on. Okay, again this is a nylock, so we don't need thread lock. Good practice with nylocks though is if you do take them on and off more than 5 or 6 times, replace them. And we need a spanner. So just put the spanner through. Tighten it up. Okay. Then we can bring the arms down to the swash plate. Okay. Again, find where the mark is. Okay, for these bigger ones, and these scale heads, they come pretty much pre-set up. Okay. And you can just push them on. Okay, and there we have. Okay, it's all brand new, so it's still a little stiff at the minute, but that will loosen up once it's got blades and stuff on and it's been run a few times. Okay, and that's the head fitted. So the next stage will be to work on the tail. So fit the tail boom, the supports and the tail rotor gearbox and the tail servo.
Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe, and follow our Facebook page for additional pictures and the ability to ask us some questions. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.